Hello everyone, welcome back to MASA Military. After the outbreak of the conflict in the Middle East, the Pentagon urgently dispatched the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Strike Group to the region, coupled with the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Strike Group in the Mediterranean. Aircraft carriers are deployed once again in the Middle East. The Ford carrier, the first ship of the new Ford-class nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, began its first combat deployment in May of this year and has been deployed for over 6 months, surpassing 200 days. This marks a new record for the first fully deployed carrier and signifies that the Ford is gradually reaching its status as the flagship vessel of the aircraft carriers. There was a time when the Ford carrier faced continuous negative news since its commissioning in 2017. Various new technologies used on the Ford-class carrier were not fully ready, leading to numerous issues and a lack of combat capability. This recent comprehensive deployment has allowed the Steel Beast to shake off its previous setbacks and showcase its capabilities. The Ford carrier has a full load displacement of over 100,000 tons, a length of about 337 meters, and can carry 75 to 90 aircraft, even surpassing the total number of aircraft of other countries' air forces. With 2 A-1B type nuclear reactors and 4-axis propulsion, this carrier has almost unlimited endurance, requiring no refueling throughout its service life. It can cruise at a maximum speed of 30 knots, accommodate 2,600 officers and crew members, significantly fewer than the Nimitz-class carriers, providing larger spaces for activities and rest. The newly designed Ford carrier incorporates 23 new technologies, including a new electromagnetic aircraft launch system, advanced arresting gear, a new weapons handling system, all-electric design, a hangar design capable of accommodating stealth aircraft, and the latest SPY-6V dual-band active phased array radar, among others. When it first entered service, the electromagnetic catapult system of the Ford faced many issues, making it difficult to work continuously for extended periods. From its commissioning in July 2017 until the end of June 2022, it completed 10,000 launches and arrested landings, averaging 5.5 arrests per day. However, by October 6, 2023, the Ford carrier achieved 20,000 launches and arrested landings, or 10,000 landings in just 1 year and 3 months, averaging 21.5 arrests per day. During the combat deployment from May to October 12th, more than 160 days, the carrier's aircraft conducted over 7,000 flights with 6,000 launches and arrested landings, averaging 37 arrests per day. This indicates that the electromagnetic system of the USS Gerald R. Ford can handle high-intensity operations, and continuous work should not be an issue, with potential for even better performance in the future. The electromagnetic launch and arresting system used by the Ford carrier can dispatch 220 aircraft sorties per day, while the Nimitz class using steam catapults can only dispatch 150 sorties per day. However, like any new technology, there is an initial period of adjustment with continuous troubleshooting, which gradually improves over time. In fact, after 3 years in service, the stability of the USS Gerald R. Ford's electromagnetic catapult system is approaching that of the steam catapult system, with higher efficiency in successful catapult launches. Starting in November, the U.S. Navy has deployed 4 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, with 2 in the Middle East and 2 in the Western Pacific. In the event of further emergencies or an escalation of conflict, how many carriers can the U.S. military mobilize? The U.S. Navy has a total of 11 aircraft carriers, with 1 undergoing midterm maintenance, leaving 10 available carriers. Among these, 6 can be rapidly deployed, 2 can complete maintenance quickly for urgent deployment, totaling 8 deployable carriers. The remaining 2 carriers require more time for regular maintenance. Typically, the U.S. Navy deploys 2 to 3 carriers on rotation, keeping the others on standby. The simultaneous deployment of 4 carriers in response to the tense situation in the Middle East slightly exceeds the normal carrier deployment plan, but remains within the acceptable range. The Eisenhower carrier was originally scheduled for deployment in November to replace the Ford in the Mediterranean, departing a month earlier than planned. The Ford carrier which deployed in May, had already been deployed for 6 months by November due to the sudden outbreak of the conflict, extending its deployment. The U.S. Navy currently does not need to deploy a third carrier to the Mediterranean or the Middle East unless the Russian Navy launches an attack against NATO, which is highly unlikely. The simultaneous deployment of the USS Carl Vinson to the Western Pacific, as planned, may occur slightly earlier. The USS Ronald Reagan, which has been cruising in the Western Pacific for 6 months, is about to return to its base in Japan. In recent years, as tensions rise in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, the U.S. Navy sends another carrier fleet each winter, replacing the permanently stationed carrier in Japan and continuing patrols in the Western Pacific. Therefore, the deployment of U.S. carriers in the Western Pacific is in line with the original plan. If tensions rise in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, the U.S. military may deploy more carrier fleets in advance and increase the deployment of amphibious assault ships. In the early stages of a conflict, some of the amphibious assault ships may serve as light carriers, enhancing the U.S. Navy's mobile air power. The U.S. military currently has a total of 9 amphibious assault ships, including 7 Wasp-class ships and 2 of the newest America-class ships. Each ship can carry up to 20 F-35B fighters. The F-35Bs delivered to the Marines are more numerous and faster than the F-35Cs. The F-35B has the advantages of short takeoff and vertical landing. It can be deployed in Japan for a long time and can also be dynamically deployed to the Philippines. It does not require a long runway to operate. Even if part of the runway is damaged, the F-35B can still operate with a shorter runway. The UK and Italy also use F-35B fighters on their aircraft carriers, as does Japan with the Izumo-class light carriers. In bases such as the Philippines, Japan, Guam, and Palau, the U.S. Air Force can deploy more F-22s and F-35A fighters, which are not far from Taiwan and the South China Sea, to take turns on standby. The F-35B fighters on amphibious assault ships can be quickly launched and recovered, maintaining the advantage of the U.S. military's 5th-generation fighters. The Pentagon has long been preparing for 2.5 wars, one involving NATO in Europe facing Russia, another involving allies in the Pacific facing the Chinese Communist Party, and a half-war, perhaps in the Middle East or other hotspot regions. The numerous carrier fleets and amphibious assault fleets of the U.S. military are intended to meet the global deployment needs. In the future, the Ford-class carriers will bear the main brunt of these deployments. Okay, that's all for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support MASA Military. See you next time.